You know, that's a really good question, and I think to get started you need to define making and you need to define makerspaces. And to do this I want to distinguish them from labs, because labs are something we're all familiar with, you know, in electrical and computer engineering, either our research labs or the instructional labs we have for students. And the best way to put it is that labs are designed for structured activities and makerspaces are designed for unstructured activities. So you don't know what's going to happen in a makerspace, you don't control it. If you try to, then you've sort of gone outside the purpose of makerspaces. So what you're doing is you're investing a space for students to actually do things that you can't predict. And so really, for this to be important, you have to ask the question, what are the aims of education? You know, what are you trying to accomplish by teaching electrical and computer engineering students? And if you listen to what industry wants, it's critical thinking, it's problem solving. They want people who are going to be agile and can work in flat organizations, which means professional skills like communication and teamwork and simply being able to talk to other people. And if you want to get these outcomes, you actually have to create an environment that can contribute to students doing that. Because the one thing I've learned about education is that we become what we do. And so if you create an environment that's very structured, in which students simply do homework and solve tests, you're going to get students who are good at solving homework problems and taking tests. And so if we're really serious about working with industry and creating these students who have these sort of more professional skills, agile skills, then we need to create environments for these to happen. And makerspaces provide this environment, and if they function well, they create a culture that rewards creativity. And what I mean by that is makers always compliment other makers on their work, they ask questions about it, they show interest, and that's really what students want, is they want to feel relevant, they want their work to be noticed. And when you're submitting one homework assignment out of 12 for the semester with 40 other students and you get minimal grading, it doesn't make you feel that way. But when you make a project and people compliment you on your creativity, that creates an environment that really provides the feedback, I think, that's useful to distinguish graduates from your programs. And so we're doing at my university, Bucknell, a lot more active and project-based learning, and the makerspace has become central to all of that. It's the place people go, and they're associated being active, they're associating being creative with being in spaces like this. And so that's really the answer to the questions. And it's a place, the makerspace provides the community, most important, it provides the support, and to the least important factor is the equipment for students to use their creativity. That's a hard question, and it's hard because it's very context dependent. It really depends on what you do in this industry, what your industry is about. And I think if you're in an industry that's really pushing the bleeding edge of technology and developing new devices, developing new software to do things nobody has done before, then the overlap between makerspaces and that kind of work is actually pretty small. But if you're really wanting to, what's a good way of putting this? Not develop bleeding edge technology, but have what you do have new and exciting applications for human beings, to have your product be taken in new and different ways you perhaps never saw people using it for, and you want to hire people who have this ability to rethink what you do, find new markets for it, then that's where I think makerspaces really help, because that's what makerspaces do. They allow hacking. They allow people to take things apart or adapt an existing technology for something that's never been done before. And in makerspaces, there's this element of creativity isn't the right word, but it's almost art or almost whimsy, where people come in and do this crazy stuff just to do it. And is it a marketable product? No, it's not an entrepreneurship course. You know, is it cutting edge technology? No. But you never know when that art and that creativity and people just wanting to do things for its own sake can really lead to new applications. And so I'm going to go up on my soapbox a little bit because I feel, you know, a little bit on a soapbox today. We've been in a period of time where there have been pretty significant cuts in the United States to budgets of higher education, the public funding of higher education. And the cost has shifted to individuals. And what this means is families are going into debt. We hear about student debt in college degrees a lot. Or people just aren't sending their kids to college because we also have increasing inequity in salaries in the United States. Those who are doing well are doing very well, but there are a lot of people who aren't doing well. And so with this cost shifting to individuals, it's leading to challenges in enrollment. And if we keep driving up the cost, there aren't going to be people entering our degree programs. And it's creating, what's a good way of putting this? It's those enrollment issues, fewer people being able to go to college, are creating a perfect storm with the trend in industry, which is you've got this bubble of people in technology industries reaching retirement age. And so industries are really worried about hiring new people, getting them trained in time, because you can't always predict when people are going to retire. And you'd think with the two sides of this equation, the retirement on industry and the need for new people, and the academics needing to fill their programs, that they'd be able to come and collaborate around this. But that's been really hard, because the missions of industry and the missions of higher education are very, very different. They're really fundamental belief systems that are hard to get around. And I think makerspaces form a neutral ground that is neither really academic or industrial. And I think you could come together essentially around makerspaces, support in makerspaces, to really cross that boundary, support new types of activities, because on the creativity of students, on students being able to take their skills and apply it in new ways, there is really perfect agreement between the academic and the industry side. And while academic departments are all about the discipline, you know, most of my colleagues are there to preserve their discipline, to create electrical engineers. Makerspaces aren't about that. Makerspaces are a place that pull in students from a lot of other disciplines who want to do interesting things with technology. And that creates an environment where you can actually pull people in who aren't getting engineering degrees, who may actually be really good fit in organizations because they have an interest and ability in technologies. And I've met some of those people, you know, at this conference even, on the industry side of it, who came in through really interesting back doors into industry. So I think ECEDHA plays a critical role here, you know, partly because they bring academics and industry together. But, you know, there's a saying that to a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. To a faculty member, every problem looks like a course. And to a lab director, every problem looks like another lab, and they need another piece of equipment for it. And as I've said before, makerspaces play a different role here. They're not labs, they're not courses. They play a role that allows people to take what they know and apply it in completely different directions. And, you know, we know from engineering design and studying engineering design that design can be broken down into two general phases. There's a divergent phase of design. We're exploring the problem, trying to map a solution, really trying to understand all the factors that are important to the design. And then you go into a convergent phase where you try to converge down to a solution. And in most design processes, you oscillate between these divergent and convergent modes several times as you converge to something, realize it's not going to work, have to look broadly, go in a slightly different direction. And I think labs and what we do in laboratories are very convergent. The activities you do in labs are supposed to converge to the knowledge that you're doing in the course. Makerspaces represent the divergent aspect of looking broadly, trying new things, exploring new bounds. And so the issue for ECEDHA there, and the place ECEDHA can really step in, is that if departments try to create makerspaces, and they do it on their own, the faculty see it as a course and they see it as curriculum focused. The lab directors see it as lab focused and equipment focused, and makerspaces aren't that. They're creative spaces that involve arts, that involve undoing the things you've learned and using it in new directions. And so too often we see examples of makerspaces that just turn into labs. They're centrally managed, they have schedules, they have a lot of rules. And that doesn't work in a makerspace. It doesn't fulfill this divergent function that we so critically need. And so I think the correct way to put it is for ECEDHA to come in and offer an example, particularly with people from industry, to come in and to be able to talk about how to stimulate creativity, the way they use this divergent thinking within their own organizations. And it has to be done by a central organization that involves both, because I don't think most universities have the people in place to reconceive fundamentally what they're trying to do and to build something that sits outside of the academic curriculum, where a makerspace has to sit if it's going to be effective. So, you know, I work at Bucknell University. We're a small private liberal arts university in central Pennsylvania. And for a couple of years, we've done surveys of our incoming students. And one of the questions we ask them is how much making or having access to a makerspace is important in their decision-making process on where to go to college. And our business is all about getting students in the door and getting them out 4 years later. And it turns out that I think, if I'm remembering the numbers, over 30% of students rate makerspaces as important or very important for their decision on where to go to college, because so many of them are going through Project Lead the Way, they're doing robotics programs, they have makerspaces in their high school, and they want to go to a university that offers similar types of things. And this number's been going up over time. The numbers aren't going down, they're going up. And 30% was a lot more than we thought. We thought we were going to get 5% of students who'd even heard of what a makerspace was. And where this is going is that branding and messaging working group of ECEDHA and making, I think, go hand in hand. If we're going to rebrand electrical engineering and make it relevant for today's students, the analogy people always use of if the students only knew what was inside a cell phone is terrible. I hate that analogy. I just want to stand up and scream every time I hear it. Because a cell phone is not something you take apart to explore the technology. A cell phone is a commodity. You buy it, and when you're done with it, you dispose of it, and you buy the latest model. It's only openable through software. It's not openable through hardware. And so really, we need to associate making very clearly with our branding initiatives and have departments their students can really come in and feel like they can use electrical engineering in meaningful ways to make and create things, rather than just understand that there's electrical engineering inside a commodity item. We've been too successful. We're very good at taking what we do, packaging it up, making it invisible, and having people use it as a commodity. So that's one area that I think other groups in ECEDHA, within ECEDHA and making overlap. We're also having a conversation within ECEDHA about diversity. And we talk a lot about diversity, but that's not the problem. The problem is equity. Basically, having equal opportunity for all people within our programs. And diversity isn't about numbers, and equity isn't about numbers. It's about culture, and it's about environments. And if you do a makerspace badly, it can be a very exclusionary culture. If you do it well, it can be a culture in which people come in, find a home, find a group of people who, what's a good way of putting this, who are like themselves, and they bond together in community. And we find it's some of the students who are most interesting, who come from the most diverse backgrounds, who don't automatically fit into an existing group on campus, that populate our makerspaces. And they form bonds and connections in those makerspaces that are going to last them throughout their lives. And so I think makerspaces, if done well, can have a really positive impact on equity within our institutions and helping to diversify our programs. Yeah, this is an interesting question as well, because one of the things you realize when you become a department chair is that you got into that position because you're passionate about pushing the boundaries of knowledge, and research is important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the position to even be a department chair in the first place. But at the same time, we're all engaged in this arms race about program status, and research plays a big role in that. And we don't have a PhD program at my institution. We can have no more than 100 master's students on campus at one time. We're a predominantly undergraduate program. But even within our institution, research plays a big role in promotion, in tenure, and those types of processes. And honestly, an ECE-focused makerspace is not going to push the boundaries of research. It's not going to help your program advance one ranking in sort of research competitiveness, because it's not about that. But, and we found this out sort of by accident, and it's been really important for us, an ECE-focused makerspace can push the boundaries of research in other disciplines. We're working with at least 3 well-known people in biology in our makerspace who are basically making new experiments that they couldn't do otherwise in biology. Is it cutting-edge stuff? No. Could they buy a $100,000 instrument to do it? But in a lot of fields, open source research instrumentation, open hardware is really taking off. And so if you build the capabilities for people from biology to come in and do new types of experiments, we're getting undergraduate students publishing peer-reviewed papers with biologists because they're doing summer projects helping them understand how ants respond to different colored lights, or pushing around chromosomes with a tiny little needle controlled by a Raspberry Pi. And these are the types of things that makerspaces can excel at doing. And so if you're only looking to do research in your own department, invest elsewhere. But if you really want to have an interdisciplinary culture of research, then makerspaces are an amazing thing to have on your campus. And certainly at the president level, at the provost level, at the university communications level, these highly interdisciplinary opportunities are very, very important to promote your institution.